Hello, Tom Barnett here again with another story behind the illustration. Here, one that, once again, seeks to capture a global dynamic that doesn't necessarily lend itself to visual representations, namely, the rise of a global majority middle class. So we needed something that showed change, the struggle to become middle class, how that alters the makeup of societies in the world. In short, why it's such a history-bending development. First, to note the title call-out, Stuck in the Middle with You by Stealers Wheel. And yes, they were one-hit wonders in the early 1970s. The song later receiving a huge boost from Quentin Tarantino's use of it in his breakthrough film Reservoir Dogs. A rather grisly scene, if you recall. But I like the overall notion of being stuck, happily stuck, in political terms, in the middle, with that global middle class. A good problem. Here's the slide that preceded and inspired the thread, for the most part. Any society has three essential economic classes, and they all want different things. The poor want protection from their circumstances. The rich want, quite frankly, protection from the poor, crime, tax burden. What the middle class wants is the hardest thing to deliver. It has achieved a good life, and it wants protection from the future, from uncertainty. It wants to be able to pass on that good life to its children and allow them to have an even better existence over time. When you mess with that middle class fear of the future, you get yourself pretty wild political circumstances. Now, what you typically want in any society is that bell curve. Not too many poor, not too many rich, and a big populous middle that serves as your political center of gravity. Now, with that structure, you have three potential political outcomes. You can have rule from the left, you can have rule from the right, or the middle class can rule itself. When the middle class arose in the West at the turn of the 20th century, we got all three outcomes. We got fascists on the right, we got Bolsheviks on the left, and we got America threading that needle with a progressive era that regraded the economic landscape and established the middle class as the political middle. Now the world reruns that experiment, but on a far larger level, remembering that the West succumbed to 2 world wars across this time frame, along with the Great Depression. Now understand, that global middle class is coming on like a freight train. 2 billion in 2000, 4 billion in 2020, up to 6 billion in the year 2050. We're already seeing the replicated efforts both from the left, single-party autocracies, and the right, ethno-nationalist strongmen, to include Donald Trump, let's be honest. The question remains, who is championing the middle-class-centric democratic rule that has long defined the West? So, that's the briefing slide I've long used to explain the stakes involved here, and this is what we sought to capture on some level visually in this illustration. Jim's first cut effort at this, I thought, captured this development in a clever, elegant way. First, the use of a teeter-totter image with that balancing fulcrum located in the middle. I thought that was very clever. The reality that the rich are few in number, the poor are many, and the primary dynamic going on here being one of the masses moving up from poverty into middle-class consumption, that being this huge, unprecedented balancing of the global economic ledger. The red team version, I thought, added some nifty clarity. Here, for example, the clouded, stormy nature of life on the lower rungs of the economic ladder versus the brighter day associated with moving up that economic ladder into real wealth. And now it's also clear that this whole vignette is situated in some sort of flooded coastal zone. I mean, there's clearly an ocean stretching in the background, but they're not in deep water. So one assumes a coastal setting that is now flooded on the basis of climate change. Put all together, a subtle, very meaningful capture in whole. Just a brilliant effort by Jim. Which gets us to the final book version. Again, notice the implied left to right movement. Dark and cloudy and crowded on the left, sunny and wonderful on the right. All that movement left to right in terms of people traversing upward the economic ladder. You get this sense that that rich guy, he's the only one who's really going to be confronted with tremendous change, oblivious as he might seem in the moment. So, all in, a cool expression of a momentous change, cleverly mirrored in the weather background, and in particular, Jim's choice to place this entire image in shallow, coastal, flooded waters. All very clever, all very evocative, and plenty for the viewer to contemplate. As always, we love it when people buy the book, when they recommend the book, when they praise the book online. I and my Throughline colleagues, we feel very passionate about this work. Please consider subscribing to my Substack newsletter, and see you next time, next illustration.